So Underscore is a talent management company helping creators leverage today's attention economy, as you put it. Can you tell me a bit about what that means and what your plan of attack is?
Yeah. So I've been in the representation space or in the talent space for a long time. And back in 2009 or 10, really the only ways to monetize your audience, if you were a quote unquote influencer, was through a brand partnership, which was oftentimes very inorganic. And, maybe there was some passive revenue coming in from YouTube, but that was really it. The really exciting opportunity today is that there are so many more ways to build revenue streams and essentially monetize your audience and grow a career, build a business, in today's ecosystem by leveraging your audience and the attention economy, which is, and I define the attention economy as fighting for people's attention, right? If you can capture somebody's attention in a meaningful way, there's myriad ways to sort of monetize it. And we're setting ourselves up to help creators identify how to do that in a way that's organic for them and builds long-term enterprise value for themselves, hopefully.
So you recently signed preschool YouTube stars Vlad and Nikki. They count over 150 million global subscribers. How did you decide to sign them aside from that huge number?
I mean, that's a part of it, right? I mean, there's not a lot of entities or IP holders that reach that scale of an audience. And if you combine that with what we believe is an incredible production value for what it is that they're doing, and the demographic that they reach in terms of preschool, sort of 3 to 6 being the key, there's just a tremendous amount of opportunity in a myriad of spaces, right? There's consumer products and toys, and there's animation, and there's all sorts of ways to sort of leverage that property that has built-in distribution, which is a big piece of the puzzle. And so, it was really Sergey and Victoria started this incredible brand, but that was it. That was their team. And so they really needed some entity or some people to come in and go, here's how we can build this into a real enterprise. Here's how we can create more IP. Here's how we can leverage your distribution to create more opportunity from a licensed goods standpoint. Here's how we put all of it together to turn into a real business. So it was a pretty exciting opportunity for us.
And do you have an idea of how much kids content creators make on average at that scale? How much is coming from these brand deals and these consumer products, like you mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to comment on Sergey and Victoria and Vlad and Nikki in particular, but there's been some stuff in the press that I'm sure you've seen, like Ryan making $30 or $40 million a year. So I think there's a lot of money to be made. Some of that is from passive income. I mean, if you're doing billions of views a month, that's significant millions of dollars a year in just passive recurring revenue from YouTube. But I think the majority of it now is coming from other arenas, right? It's licensing your content to other platforms. It's like, doing products and merchandise and, licensing campaigns. And, Ryan is in, or I should say Vlad and Nikki are going to have toys this summer in Target and Walmart, and really sort of expanding the brand in other arenas where the majority of the revenue is no longer beholden on YouTube, which I think is the most exciting piece.
How do you see the kids content space expanding? So much of YouTube's top channels right now are these like Ryan's World and kid content creators and Baby Shark. How do you see the space expanding, and how much is Underscore investing in it?
Yeah, I'd say hugely. I mean, I think that you always have more audience, right? There's more kids born every day. I think the access to the content is becoming a lot easier, right? I hate to say it, but parents sometimes leverage YouTube and YouTube Kids as a tool, right? As a babysitter, as it were. And it's much easier to engage with that content than on a television screen now, right? From Netflix or whatever the case may be. So I think that just created a whole opportunity for creators operating in this space.
And what have been some challenges and rewards working with child stars? Do you have any? Who else on your roster fits into that space?
I'd say we have a big family contingent, right? So I think Vlad and Nikki would be the only business that we're in that I would call squarely preschool. today. We're going to expand that, in partnership with Vlad and Nikki over time, where we bring in more creators and help leverage Vlad and Nikki's reach and expertise to build more opportunity for other creators, which is something we're excited to build. But we've got a lot of family channels that have kids, but that really are a co-viewing experience where kids watch it, adults watch it. The Royalty family, the LeBrant family, the Onyx family. There's a lot of that in the portfolio. And look, the challenges are they're vlogging their life, right? They need to remain connected with the audience, and they have ups and downs. They have emotions, and it can be challenging at times as well as rewarding. And so building an infrastructure so that they can create the amount of content that they need to create while also thinking about the business that they need to build, while also being a family, presents its list of challenges that we just need to navigate.
So how do you help them build their brands, especially as these children grow up? And how would you restructure their brands?
Yeah, I think it's very case specific, right? There is no one size fits all for these creators. What their brand ends up being is very determinant about who their audience is, what they want to build, and the type of content that they're creating, right? In the case of Vlad and Nikki, one of the things that we're working on is how do we create an animated show where Vlad and Nikki don't age, essentially? It could live on forever if it's successful. That's a piece of it. How do we start to develop maybe other children in their ecosystem so that it's also not so heavily reliant on Vlad and Nikki in particular? Mm-hmm. So IP extensions, franchise building, the way that Disney does it, creating universes with other people to sort of mingle in and out, is something that we're really interested in particular around Vlad and Nikki. And it's sort of similarly with the family channels. It's how do we create content that the audience responds to that's akin to what it is that they're doing, but isn't necessarily always reliant on them being in front of the camera. And how do we diversify their revenue streams, right? Because if you're always beholden to the YouTube algorithm, you're on this hamster wheel, right? But if you are creating passive and recurring revenue streams from other arenas, whether that be membership subscriptions or things like Cameo or publishing or, whatever, consumer products, whatever it is, at some point, you don't have to be so reliant on that constant, content output in the YouTube algorithm.
So recently, YouTube changed its guidelines for children's YouTube channels. So for one, kids content can no longer run targeted ads, or some kids content channels. Has that affected some of your clients?
All of the clients. Yeah. I think that you need to really identify if you're a made for kids channel or if the video is a made for kids content. It's a little gray to figure out what exactly needs to be marked made for kids and what doesn't. And YouTube ultimately has the control over what they feel is made for kids and what doesn't. But content that is marked made for kids does not monetize as well as content not marked for kids because of what you just said, right? They can't run targeted ads. They can't collect, information because of COPPA and CAPA rules. And so the CPMs and the premium nature of the ad inventory isn't quite as high as stuff that isn't made for kids. So you have to do, 2 or 3 times the volume to earn, the same amount of revenue you would if it wasn't made for kids content, which is why it's, important to create more revenue streams and not be beholden to just that.
How do these children and these families who have this huge audience, how do they harness influence and attention?
How do they harness influence and attention? I think it's different for each. I think Vlad and Nikki have created this really colorful, robust, imaginative world that kids really respond to. They lean into some of the trends, they lean into the hot toys, and they create an escapism for children. I think Ryan did the same thing with opening the toys, right? Originally, when it was Ryan's toy reviews, there was that wish fulfillment. There was that, I think there was a psychological study where kids' brainwaves were measured and they got the same joy out of watching Ryan open the toys as they would opening their own toy. And so I think harnessing that has been really helpful for a lot of these family creators. And creating, you know, I don't want to say sensationalist, but just like, you know, really over the top, compelling, you know, identifiable, relatable content has really helped them. And I don't know if that's answered your question about how they harness their influence, but that's how.
I definitely think it does. There's something about, watching a child as a child or watching a parent as a parent.
Correct.
And what has it been like working with these families and these children? Do you help come up with the content?
Again, I think it varies. You know, most of them got to where they are because they're extremely self-sufficient, creative, artistic producers of content, right? And so oftentimes we don't come in and produce content for them or with them. You know, we'll offer ideas here and there in terms of, you know, what the trends are in the world, where you could lean into, you know, maybe hit the algorithm a little bit more, how you could optimize your content a little bit more. You know, is it too long? Is it too short? You know, where are people dropping out? Where are they not dropping out? Like we'll do some sort of more statistical and data analysis around content that helps inform their creativity. But very rarely on the day-to-day stuff do we get involved in creative. Where we would plug into creative is, you know, is there an opportunity for upstreaming a television show, and how do we package that and put that together, and what does that creative look like, and who produces that, right? What is the creative for the book, or what is the this? What are the other opportunities outside the day-to-day that we would you know, sort of plug into? And then in other cases, we do have clients that are a great personality but don't really have a capacity to produce content or know what to produce, right? And so in those scenarios, we'll come in and we'll actually build a team to actually produce the content and do the creative and all of that sort of stuff. Less so on the family side, more on other types of influencers.
Right. And how has your experience working with huge names like Kanye West and Prince prepared you for this new venture? And how do the experiences compare so far?
Well, I kind of like to say talent is talent, right? They're all, you know, they're artistic and creative and all, but they're also emotional and, you know, can be slightly irrational sometimes. And so dealing with it previously and at that kind of a level has certainly prepared you for pretty much anything that can be thrown at you, and to sort of remain calm and be proactive in trying to avoid pitfalls and problem solve and all of that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, you're dealing with people, and you just have to be, you know, capable, excited, and sort of trained to deal with people on an ongoing basis. And so it's not that different. It's just the medium is different.
And you've said that Underscore wants to pioneer a new style of representation, focusing on the future. Can you expand on that a little?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're living in a new time, right? Like, so going back to the beginning, this new creator economy, you know, navigating that, there's never been anybody that's done it before, right? It didn't exist before. Representing an actor 20 years ago was one thing, but that same representative representing somebody in today's world is not, you know, it doesn't have the tool set, the experience, or the capability to navigate this new ecosystem. It's a completely different place to navigate. And so I think we want to pioneer, you know, sort of that first fully scaled company that it's not actually being reactive, not just evaluating incoming opportunities, but looking at the ecosystem going, let's think about this different, right? Let's not think about how to turn you into a movie star because you're an influencer. Let's build a real enterprise over here. Let's leverage all the tools that we have here. The audience is going this way, not this way, right? And so let's figure out how to do that. And that's the kind of new style of representation that we want to do. And we feel like a lot of the representation in this space today is very disparate, unorganized, a little small. You know, a lot of the new reps in the space, just by virtue of who understands the space, are young, you know, slightly inexperienced, you know, sometimes unsophisticated. And so bringing a little bit of sophistication and scale and expertise to this space is what we're excited to try to figure out.
And if someone wanted to start a YouTube channel or a personal brand, what advice would you give to them? Get
ready. It's a grind. I mean, like don't think that you're going to upload one video and pray that it gets 1 million views and all of a sudden you're going to be off to the races, right? Very little times is there like an, quote unquote overnight success like that. It really requires you to study the ecosystem and be equal parts content creator and marketer, right? And understand how does the platform work? Understanding that YouTube is not just a video destination, it's also the second largest search engine in the world. And it's also the third largest social network in the world. And so creating content and engaging with that platform, knowing those three things, is imperative, right? Leveraging TikTok is a different animal. Leveraging Snapchat is a different animal. Like having to interact with the fans comes with the job, right? You can't just post something and go away, right? And so you got to get ready for all the stuff around it, not just the creativity of making a video.
And then I just have one 2-part question left.
Yeah.
So for the creator economy, how do you envision the immediate and distant future of working with creators and building a business as a creator?
I think today, it's how do we diversify revenue streams? Because there are those opportunities. So how do we take a creator that's got some level of scale and go, we need to put your content here, 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 and here. And this is how we engage with your fans here, here, and here to drive revenue, right? Mm-hmm. Tomorrow, I think it's much more around how do we build businesses, right? How do you look at, the audience that you've built, the influence that you have, and leverage that to create real enterprise value, whether it's a company, a brand, a consumer product, a media platform, whatever it is. How do you take all of these things that are available to you in the creator economy and combine them with your reach of audience to build a business in a particular arena? I think that's how long-term, because I do believe that the next billion-dollar companies will be built in and around talent. They'll have personalities, right? They won't be Procter and Gamble, the faceless, sort of just corporate company. Elon Musk to me is equal parts influencer as he is, CEO entrepreneur, right? And so I think that you'll see a lot more of that.
I guess sort of an not unrelated question, but TikTok kind of solidified what it means to be a creator, or really brought the word creator to the forefront. Do you think TikTok has staying power? Do you think it's just kind of hot right now and maybe in a year or two it'll?
I would push back on that. I think YouTube in particular sort of cemented what it is to be a creator, because it created an entire class of individual that could create content and get paid for their content or their audience, right? Yeah. Then what ended up happening is the proliferation of all these other platforms to drive audience, because essentially your audience was your currency. That was how you built a business. So you first had Vine, right? And then Vine didn't have any staying power, but it did create a new breed of talent, right? These short form creators. And they took the jump from Vine over to Instagram. Right. And then so Instagram built up its entire ecosystem of creators. And then you had TikTok come up, which was the opposite of Instagram. Right. And you had an entirely new, or Musical.ly, I guess I should say, that turned into TikTok. Right. And so there was an entirely new class of creators that was leveraging that ecosystem for their creative outlet. And so does TikTok have staying power? I mean, I'm smart enough to know that I shouldn't predict anything, because I don't know, everything. I'm always surprised, right, about what goes and what stays. It seems like TikTok will stay around. They've got a very powerful algorithm. They've got, I think a growing user base from the younger sort of generation. Will something come by to supplant it or be the next it thing? It is absolutely possible. But at the moment, it seems like it's got some staying power, at least for the short term.
My last question. Apps like Snapchat and all these different apps are competing for creators right now. Even Clubhouse launched its creator payment fund. How do you think these apps can compete for creators?
I think they have to offer something different. I don't think it's, I don't think you're going to get, I'm trying to think of creator X to be as valuable on each of these different sort of platforms. I think Clubhouse, for example, will breed a specific type of influencer that they should nurture and and create versus going to get, some big influencer on YouTube to come to Clubhouse. Like, I think they should lean into what's valuable around their ecosystem and try to attract people that fit that brand. I think it's the same thing with Snapchat and others. And there'll be ones that cross over for sure. And they have to offer something slightly unique. They can't offer a viewer the same experience. There's no reason why a creator would want to give the same experience someone gets on Instagram, just replicated over on Snapchat. It doesn't make sense, right? So there needs to be a different value proposition, and each platform needs to figure out its unique value proposition for creators and for the audience. I look at Snapchat today. I mean, the Spotlight thing is kind of fun because people were getting paid for their viral videos, but it's pretty saturated now. And you're not hearing about people making millions of dollars in Spotlight anymore. Mm-hmm. Really, the reason Snapchat is still successful is because kids use it as their messaging app, right? It's not a content consumption. It's not a one-to-many. It's a one-to-one communication tool now. And then TikTok is the one-to-many and Instagram or whatever. And so they'll use all of them, but for very different reasons.